Do you know what the like best and most accurate debate movie is? It's a pretty good movie.
Uh, no, I have no idea. The Great Debaters was kind of fun,
It's a good
but
one. Yeah, that's a good one.
yeah.
But actually, the most I think accurate to the spirit of it is "Thank You for Smoking."
Thank you for smoking. Okay, I think I might have seen parts of that. I'll have to go
Yeah,
back and
because
watch that
that's a
again.
really good one. You should really watch it because it's about a tobacco lobbyist,
Yes, yeah,
and the,
that's
sort of his son is like starts doing debating competitions. It's like as like
right,
a B plot in the movie, and so he's giving him advice like a tobacco lobbyist instead of giving him debating advice.
right.
And the whole movie is like intentionally made to like be provocative, because essentially the protagonist is the bad guy, or what you would could argue is the bad guy, but it like fairly portrays the bad guy in that there are reasons why in debating. To learn that skill, you need to understand some things, and one of the things is like one of his examples is like you have debates which like most things are actually debates of the type of like which flavor of the ice cream is best. Like is it
Mm,
vanilla, is it chocolate, or is it strawberry? And the thing is, if you realize that, then that allows you to learn how to really debate any position, because there are some debates that are the factual debates, so-called factual debates, are about like what are the facts, and those
mm,
are not very subjective.
right,
Those are about hard evidence and at most interpreting evidence more correctly.
right,
So that's like it's a bit arbitrary element, but it's not super subjective element.
right.
But most debates are value debates or plan debates, and value debates and plan debates are about preferences
Mm,
at the core. So you can always win these debates by winning the like being most persuasive about either which preference is by some subjective criteria the best based on
mm,
what the audience will respond to, or you can win it by stressing the point, like one of the sides of the debate you can win by stressing the point that it is arbitrary,
mm.
that like you can't scientifically prove that one flavor of the ice cream is better, and therefore people should be allowed to have preferences.
Yeah. So I'd love to try to break it up into two different types. Like every single question should be either classified as, a subjective question. What flavor do you like? What color do you like? Personal preference type question. And I'm definitely not as interested in those, although, in some cases they're interesting, but I'm much more interested in, should we kill one another? Should we hurt one another? Should we steal from one another? Those are like Ten Commandment type questions that have been essentially argued for centuries, and I think we're getting better answers on those. What
That's
pressures
actually a
decide?
sub, yeah, but that's still a value question, but it's like that's the annoying subcategory slash hybrid of value and plan, because like the normally plan debates have the formulation of we should do X,
Okay.
but there's a value type motion that you would debate that essentially you could also use the word should, but what you really mean is ought to.
Mm,
And that's part plan, because any debate that can debate consequences of taking actions is part
mm,
plan debate, because you're saying essentially to do actions or not to do actions. But this subtype is more value leaning because it's about ought to, like what is actually better or not. And then
okay.
the factual element could come in if you're trying to establish things like benefits or harms
Right. Yeah.
of the outcomes. So
Yeah.
it's
Consequences, right?
mixed.
Yeah. Consequences.
Yeah, so it's mixed, but in the debating sense, these sort of like moral ought to questions uh, still fall into the category of like flavor or not,
Mm,
but there's a way of looking at them from the point of view of something like some of the scientific philosophers would propose that you could, like, if you get the facts right in the scientific sense, you could start deriving some moral consequences and conclusions from them.
mm,
That the like at least if you then like we could say like you like to do a lot with the utilitarian argument. Essentially, like you could almost scientifically, there would be some subjective element to interpretation of it, but almost scientifically you could make utilitarian arguments in that like you start from the facts and then you see that some solutions, some plans, some arrangements are
mm.
objectively or as objectively as you can be with anything ethical, can be like almost completely objectively better
Yeah.
than some other outcome.
I like that. So if you have like an objective goal, for example, the long life of as many human beings as possible, or something simple like that. You can objectively quantify it. You can measure. These are the I mean, it's hard to measure happiness, joy, and success.
Yeah, it's one of
I
the things we
guess
should probably
the
also talk
challenge.
about a little bit.
But at the bare minimum, you can say the the maximum amount of healthy lives, I guess. I mean, you can kind of measure health a little bit at least.
That's I looked into actually after making the comment that like after my writing book about astrology and skepticism, I know that many of these questionnaires or ways of studying these things are really bad. Like in my book, the example with they couldn't even make a questionnaire that would answer how many people believe in astrology, which
Right.
is almost completely objective question. They just keep screwing with the wording of the question so that the questions are dumb and can't work.
Yeah.
So there are some really bad questionnaires that are being used as standard. Though I looked at the index that you referenced, or the general like happiness index type
Yes.
ways of testing it, and I actually was pleasantly surprised that what they're more focusing on, because I know there are some with like survey questions that are subjective, but
Good. Yes.
that have problems. But they are trying the core of it. They try to estimate on objective variables. Objective
Right.
variables like you can measure to some extent, even though again with every measure there's some issues, but you can try to measure like poverty, or you can try to measure health, or you can try to measure like how many people have a home or can get education. And you can measure
Yeah.
these objective aspects that are at least correlated with what you can infer are positive
Opportunity.
experience.
Yeah. Let's say opportunity is a good thing
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
general.
So the other
Yeah.
thing, so the way to do it is to try to look for objective indicators, or that
Yeah.
probably have good correlation with the more subjective and hard to describe things like happiness or good life experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love that as kind of a good baseline to start, my debates from, if I decide to, go with that route, is to have a set of questions that are as best as possible, objectively good directions for society.